And today we are doing a deep dive on Monica Lewinsky. I recently watched a podcast with her. It was very interesting. And I sent it to Jessica and I was like, girl, we need to talk about this. Monica Lewinsky is 51 years old. I am 52. Jessica is 51. And hearing about this reminded me, like, this was a whole layer of my young adulthood, a story that got into here, got into here, got into other places. And I was like, we need to discuss because Monica is showing up now with a brand new voice, her own podcast. And I just had lots of thoughts and feelings. So I had to come and talk about it with you.
Ah, I'm so glad you did. It was such a fascinating interview. For anyone who wants to check it out, it's on the very famous podcast called Call Her Daddy by Alex Cooper, who is a younger host who I got to say, shout out to Alex Cooper. She really asked some great questions. And I'm so excited to talk to you because I almost feel like it took some younger generations of women to look at Monica Lewinsky and be like, hold up. What the F just happened here? Why is everyone acting like that was at all normal? And really kind of coming to Monica's rescue. So that was so interesting to listen to. And then, yes, she also has just launched her own podcast called Reclamation, which when I saw that word was such a sort of soul hit for me because that's what we're doing at this time of our life. We're reinventing ourselves. We're reclaiming those parts of ourselves that either we lost or were taken from us, which I think is really what happened with Monica. So I cannot wait to dive in with you and with you ladies who are joining us live. I see so many great names popping up right now. And we would love to know right off the bat, where were you when the Monica Lewinsky scandal first happened? What was like your way of processing it? I mean, I am Monica's age. So I was a 22-year-old when she was having her fling and a 24-year-old when it all blew up. And it's so wild to process it now as a middle-aged woman. I mean, Flachet, what is like your kind of first hit after kind of rethinking about Monica and listening to this interview with her?
Well, first of all, being reminded that we had so little language back then about fat shaming, slut shaming, just like the way the entire system rolled over her to steamroll her, to silence her, to shut her up, to discredit her, to gaslight her. Um, it was a hot mess. And so having that bird's eye view now as a mature lady looking at all of that, I'm like, how did she even stand a chance? She obviously just barreled into something real inappropriate. And I was interesting. There was a part of me that was waiting to hear a little bit from her of like, I think she takes ownership of it. But I think this is part of what's unfinished business for her right now is that I don't know. I was kind of thinking that she might say something a little bit more about like how she felt about her part in all of that. And I do think the system treated her like trash, worse than trash.
Yeah.
And I remember like watching the tabloids, not tabloids, but like even just watching like CNN coverage, and how they would talk about her body and her looks and like, oh yeah, she's not pretty enough to catch the eye of our president, who clearly is just like the biggest hoe.
Hoe! He is such a hoe.
Yeah, yeah,
Such a
yeah.
hoe. Yeah.
So of course she would get scooped up in all of that. He's so charismatic and powerful, and she was all doe-eyed and all of that. I I don't know what she talked about it a lot more than I thought she would. And I still could see, like, the therapist in me, the spiritual guide in me was like, "Oh, she still has a lot of work to do, like, to really heal that up." So much unfinished business, but the best way to do it is to start talking about it and invite others in to talk about their trauma, their wounding, because the truth is we all have it. We've all been in situations like that where we just got steamrolled or whatever, especially as young women.
Yes. it's so messy. We're still figuring out our sexuality, our identity. And I really do feel for her. So I did feel a little bit of a defensiveness on her part, but I think it's because, to your point, she was like stoned, like meaning like what the old villagers would do to a woman or still do in some instances in some parts of the world. Like the idea of the scarlet letter kept coming up again and again. That like I don't know if it gets any worse than that, for a woman. Just this idea that you are just the biggest slut ever. So I did feel a defensiveness, and I also almost felt a defensiveness for her.
Yeah.
And I also was thinking, what if we had switched the genders? Like, what if this had been a young male intern and we had actually had a female president? Imagine that. He would be getting high fives all over the place. He would be being called a stud. I don't think it would have impacted his career at all. So, the double standard, as we all know as women, is just like flagrant in this situation. But I do understand what you're saying. She also did own that she had her own kind of like naivete, which I think she also is still unpacking. She talked about how she could, sorry, hair in the mouth, how she could disassociate from an early age from some other trauma, which also made me feel protective of her. Like it made me want to scoop her up in my mama wing and be like, Bill, you sniffed that out, you hoe. You sniffed out the young, doe eyed intern who would freaking do anything for you above or below your desk, as it turns out, and completely took advantage of that naivete.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Right? And, like, she's 22, y'all. Like, now that we're in our midlife, I know when I was 22, you couldn't tell me anything. I thought I had it all figured out. And now we're looking back and realizing, like, we were babies.
Yeah.
We were such babies, and we were, like, playing at being an adult, and we were playing at having relationships, and Bill Clinton, you freaking hoe, totally took advantage of that, manipulated this young girl who fell, I believe, head over heels for him, and had her own fantasy of what was happening. They were exchanging gifts. They were having phone sex. They were doing all of these things that for someone who was that naive, maybe could kind of create her own fantasy world. But for him, in the position he was in, that was such an abuse of power. And to your point, also the different words that we didn't even know, sex, slut shaming, fat shaming, also the power imbalance.
Oh yeah.
Like disgusting, right? And this isn't new. We've seen this play out time and time again, but it was so gross. I also have to own my part as like a progressive and a Democrat that when 2016 rolled around, that election cycle, when that tape dropped of Donald Trump confessing to assaulting women outright, and we were all in total shock, and we were like, there's no way he's going to get elected. He is the master deflector that gross man is, brought up Bill Clinton. And even though this is a different era and this is a different time, I, it, I think it caught a lot of us off guard, where it was like, oh, wow, let's look back. What did we do for that man? What kind of excuses did we make for, the leader of the free world? And so that was a really unfortunate thing where like we see how this abuse of power with young girls and women in general still is playing out to this day. So I kind of I have to confess an uneasiness that I feel, that I accepted this, and that we, Flachet, growing up during this time, absorbed this.
Mm.
And what did we think about Monica? What did we jump on the bandwagon? What were we processing at a young age about her? And for you ladies listening, I would be so fascinated to hear. Like, were you a hell no, thinking that, this was not right at all? Or were you kind of, wrapped up in this whole scandal that she talked about, played out for a year, y'all? It was a different time, right? It was like, it was in the newspapers all over the world. This scandal captivated the world.
Yeah, it was so bad. I remember when he got impeached, I remember there's a part of me I was like, "Yeah, I'm glad something's gonna happen to this POS." Because you don't just get to do that and get away with it. I think I think about, the way he humiliated his wife and, like, just took everyone down with his hoish, nasty ways. I just thought that was so disgusting and so foul. So to see him have some kind of consequence, there was a part of me I was like, "Well, I'm not I don't agree with the way it all happened," and there was a way that it didn't feel great to see it all go down, but I was glad to see him get to see him get slapped. And publicly. I do think he deserved that, and I think he deserves much worse. And even now that Monica is like, "You know what? I'm gonna crawl back out into the light. I'm going to have my moment. I'm gonna speak my mind. I'm gonna say all the things that I couldn't and didn't even know or understand at the time." Watching that, I felt like, "Oh, girlfriend's got on her Wonder Woman outfit. She's owning it, and she's not going to be ashamed anymore." And I think of the things that I still carry shame about from my young womanhood, and I could feel some of that just lifting off. Just I could feel it. It was like, "You go, girl. You say the things, speak it out." And yeah, punch at Bill Clinton. He deserves it. He deserves it, and he threw her under the bus in such an ugly public. Even at the time, we all knew, I
Yes,
did not, I have kids in
please.
the house, so I'm not gonna say all the things right now, but
Yes,
we heard him, and we all knew, "Mm-mm, that
we
is a
knew.
lie." My
We
spidey
knew.
sense knows that man is lying and will continue to lie until he didn't,
Yes.
and I just it was so foul.
It was so foul, and it was such a hot mess on so many levels, and he could have handled it in such a more adult, grown-up way, and so they were doing damage control, and yes, they absolutely threw her under the bus and absolutely humiliated her. She brought up such a great example in the podcast, when she was being interviewed on Call Her Daddy, where she said, "Can you all remember when you were in school and maybe there was a bad rumor about you or something embarrassing happened?" Right? It's like at that age, anything can happen that makes you so embarrassed and you're convinced that everyone is looking at you, and the fact that you don't want to go to school. I was having a flashback, girl, to when I got a haircut at not it wasn't even Supercuts. It was called Better Cuts. Okay. It was a knockoff of Supercuts. They gave me feathered Farrah Fawcett hair, y'all. I was not trying to have Farrah Fawcett feathered hair. And I begged my mom, please don't make me go to school. Please don't make me go to school. And she made me go to school with these goddamn Farrah Fawcett feathered hairdo. I was mortified. That was over a haircut in high school. I can only imagine what this young woman had to deal with, the level of shame that she felt, and that she shared too that it was the women who were the meanest because she shared how jokey a lot of men were and how they loved talking about the sex jokes, but that the women really went after the shame part of this. That really hurt my heart for a young woman, and I love seeing her now being like, I'm in midlife, I'm owning it, I'm reclaiming it. Because can you imagine what that would do to you as a young woman to like shut you down when the whole world knows your mistake and your
Yeah.
business?
Right, and I think that's part of the public stoning. I mean, we know that most men cheat. I mean, I've seen estimates as high as 7 out of 10 men. And 40% of women are doing it too, so it's not like we get a pass, but we know that most men are doing it. And so I think there's a lot of unfinished business too for women of like, where do we get our justice? And so Monica was this like, beautiful, doe-eyed
Yeah.
ingenue, and I do think that certain ladies of that generation were just like, "Well, we can't get the ones in our lives, but we can get her." And I think there was such an ugliness to that too, and that like Jay Leno, like it was one of his top
Yes.
jokes.
Yes. Just just such a cheap shot. Such a cheap
Cheap
shot
shots.
And we're also so uncomfortable with women's sexuality, right? It's like,
Yeah.
there were kind of some jokes about Hillary Clinton too, of like, well, she must not be giving it up for Bill if he's going over here. And then there were the cheap shots at Monica for, being this naive young girl who was clearly being used, clearly being objectified. But I think she genuinely had feelings. She genuinely fell head over heels. I mean, who didn't have some fucked up relationships early on where guys were using us and we were all confused,
Oh,
or
yeah.
hey, maybe you were using somebody too. I mean, you're working all of that stuff out. You're still so young. You're still so young and dumb and clueless. And he took full advantage of that. So, where was the sympathy? Where was the understanding for this intern who had literally no power and no voice versus the most powerful person in the world, right? Like, talk about a power imbalance. Like, that just like blows your mind, right? Yeah, really, really crazy. And then it was interesting too when she talked about how poor thing, it was such a Gen X story. She's like, I was in the mall when the FBI came and scooped me up to start questioning me. I'm like, were you getting an orange Julius? Like, what were you doing in the mall, girl? Because I feel you. I mean, right?
Well, and that story too opened up a lot more questions for me because what about justice for her? They were encouraging her not to talk to a lawyer, saying, "Oh, you'll get more information if you don't have a lawyer." I mean, that sounds fully illegal. And I don't know if she followed up on that or how that was handled, but I mean, whoa.
Also, in her own podcast, which I was able to listen to, where she discusses herself on her podcast, Reclamation, she talks about how if you are a government worker, you can get reimbursed for your lawyer fees, and that Bush and Reagan and Clinton, in different instances, had that happened. She didn't get anything. Her legal fees were over $1 million.
Oh,
And I loved what she brought up with her privilege too, because she was an upper middle class girl. Her family could fund her throughout this. And after, when she wasn't able to get hired and, had a name and a horrible stigma, she talked about how she could really understand how women would turn to, posing in magazines, doing anything they could to make some money. Because when you're a quote fallen woman, what do you do? What do you do then? What do you turn to? And if you don't have a safety net like she did, you're really, really ostracized from community. It just makes me really pissed that we're so punitive with young women this way when it comes to them, figuring out their sexuality.
yeah. Yeah, it also reminded me, I mean, do you remember the name Linda Tripp from that whole saga?
God, what a manipulative lady.
That I mean, I remember at the time just thinking, "Whoa," to use a friendship like that and to just I can see why, why why Monica has struggled in relationships, right? To have been betrayed so intensely by men and women, right? And then the culture on the whole. I feel like our whole system hardly anybody was there for her, supporting her, trying to hold her up and get justice for her too, right? She was used as a tool in this entire saga, the entire time, and fodder for jokes and people's internal trauma being projected onto her. But I think about Linda Tripp. There's like I just feel like there's a special place in hell for women who will use other women like that.
I mean, having their personal calls taped, which apparently was illegal, right? Like, you can't do that. And then having this whole other, kind of, objective to, like, take down the Clintons and, the whole thing that, like, the Republicans were obviously gonna use this to their advantage, and that Linda Tripp was just this really old, like, this older woman who should have been like her big sister. Hey, you might wanna reconsider messing around with that guy. But no, I mean, and you do think, was she encouraging her to keep going with it? And then she was asking her for all the graphic details, which then she
Evidence.
Evidence. Oh, that evidence. I mean, I remember learning about the blue dress. I remember learning about, all the cigar jokes and just really like thinking about how this young woman had been played and that, you would never want to wind up like her because how embarrassing, right? But now I feel more mad. Now I feel more upset and protective, kind of like a big sister. So, Linda Tripp, shame on you for using a young, naive girl for your own objective and agenda. You can be pissed at Bill Clinton, but why were you using this freaking young, clueless girl? That was messed up.
It really was messed up. I wonder if our girlfriends, I feel like ladies are here on the call with us. What do you guys want to say? Like, add your piece to this story because we're just two Gen X ladies riffing right now and having this time together. But the story's not complete without your addition, without your thoughts, your feelings about the whole thing. So let us know. We'll definitely read out um, the feedback, 'cause I would love to know. I'm super curious. Like, I know how Jessica and I feel about it. Now you do too.
Well, and as you're writing and sharing, I hope you are. I also just I want to thank the younger women, like Alex Cooper, excuse me, and a lot of women who Monica shared were coming to her defense years ago. It took a younger generation. It's so interesting to think that we in her generation didn't have the perspective, right? And this is what's beautiful is that we as Gen X women can learn things from our younger generations who look and go, that ain't right. That's ridiculous. Just the way we would look at things for our mother's generation and our grandma's generation and be like, gross. That was totally wrong. So I love this opportunity in our midlife to reclaim parts of ourselves as we age and to also learn from our younger sisters about what was right, what we can rewrite as a narrative that already happened to us and to other women who we know, because I really think that's how we evolve.
Yeah.
And we are seeing a great pushback right now of this, pushback to traditional values and traditional roles. And yet we're also seeing this growing tide of women who are going, no way. We are looking at these traditional roles and calling BS on them all. And so that makes me feel like I want to stay curious and I want to stay open to what we can continue to re-examine,
Mm.
right? Which is why I think it's great for us at this age to also be saying, hey, ladies, like we were Monica's contemporaries. Maybe we didn't defend her like we could have, because frankly, I don't know. It was all just such a circus, right? Um, that what can we do now with our voices? And again, that's why I think we're so proud of someone like Monica Lewinsky. Also, it's inspiring, right? It's like if she can do that, a woman who was like literally like publicly stoned, wore the scarlet letter, still does in many circles. If she can reclaim parts of herself, what can we do? What shame can we let go of that we're still holding on to? What shame and judgment can we let go of that we are thinking about other women that we can let go of? Because that will continue to divide us, that will continue to bring us all down. So, what can we let go of and what can we reclaim? That's what I'm really excited about at this stage in our life.
I love that you said that because as I was listening to her interview this weekend, um, that was the big thing that I was sitting with. Oh, this is a healing for me too. There are parts of myself that I need to reclaim, ways that my story was taken and twisted, ways that I lost power, ways that I've been shamed. So it was so beautiful. And I love the way you articulated that. And this is my personal opinion and professional opinion is that that's the next layer for Monica too. That's my prayer for her is that as she unpeels the onion of her, that is her life, that that's the next piece and I feel like it's something spiritual. There's like a spiritual healing and coming back together that she still feels kind of separated. And so I hope that she can find that help and that support and to have that next healing for herself. And I do believe she will do it through her podcast. You've often heard me say you can't steer a parked car. We
No.
have to get out there and we have to, it's going to be ugly sometimes. Our healing, our business, our work, our relationships. Sometimes we go through this phase and we don't always say the perfect thing, but it's the act of saying it. It's the act of not being afraid to be seen. It's the act of actively healing and bring all those multiple parts of ourselves back together. And I do believe that she is on her path to doing that and allowing each of us to do that for ourselves in tandem. Is that the right word? I'm not sure. But like in getting synchronized with that healing energy.
That's right. Well, because exactly when we're speaking out loud, we're learning out loud and we're doing it with each other. And the point is never to be perfect and to have it all figured out because we know that's BS. I mean, the truth is the older we get, the more we realize the less we know. But isn't that exciting and beautiful? And I think that she will absolutely grow through this podcast, through being interviewed, and now with this midlife perspective, I hope she can step into that. I think in some ways she was probably very stunted and very frozen. And she shares how she did not get to have a young adulthood. She didn't
Yeah.
get to work. She didn't get to have a lot of relationships. In some ways, she feels very behind. But how brave for her to step out of the shadows and say, help, I need healing. I need to be held. And I think we all need that. And I think that a lot of things for women can hold us back, right? It's like, oh, I'll do it once I feel ready, right? Which is that perfectionist trap, or I'll do it when I feel like I'm more powerful. And the irony is we are going to feel more powerful by actually stepping out in the ring and being a little scared.
Yeah.
And yet, when we can do it together on places like this, Substack, when we can go live, when we can talk on podcasts or be listening in a girlfriend circle like we are right now, I truly believe it's how we evolve. We are not islands. We are not meant to be islands. And so, for her, really a castaway that was basically told, go away and never come back because you make us all feel icky and weird and you're complicated and we don't like complicated women. I love that she's stepping back out and being like, I'm complicated. Here is my buffet. Let's figure it out.
And yeah, listen or don't, right? Like her podcast is for the right people to hear at the right time. You touched on something that I wanted to make sure to highlight, which was part of that midlife perspective, her ability, her courage, her strength to come out and say the things now was about being 51 and being like, I don't care that much what people think about me. And I know that is something that has like set you and me just free in so many ways of like, I don't care. I don't care what people's opinions are about me. And it turns out I wasted so much of my life, so much of my energy, so much of my potential, my power, letting other people's. I mean, most people are so unhealed and traumatized themselves. They're just projecting their own garbage onto everybody else. And so to be able to come out and say what I think and what I feel has been so powerful. And I just am applauding Monica all day long for doing it and being on her journey and doing it out loud on her own terms. That is everything. And it is my central prayer that every woman come into that place and own her life, own her story. So I think it's really a beautiful opening for each of us to do that healing work for
Yes.
ourselves and for our sisters and our girlfriends and our friends and our daughters and our moms and aunties, everybody.
Yes. Yes. I think you're so right. And I mean, that's what your other podcast, Lumarian Lullaby, is looking at is really a healing, is really taking a moment and taking a pause and going inward to do some of that healing. And also, like we're talking about at this age, of like dropping the baggage, letting it go, dropping that emotional labor and that shame that has weighed us down that in many instances wasn't ours to carry. Like, yes, does Monica have a part to play in this? Absolutely. But she shouldn't have had to carry it all. You know, I love the moment when someone said, "Why did you never think about changing your name?" And she was like, "I bet you Bill Clinton was never asked that same question." Right. Right. And yet we see time and time again women, being cast away. Like we're these objects, right? Where these powerful men are so much more important. Also, she wasn't the first scandal. There were many women that stepped forward that we're now learning about, that we're talking about being groped by Bill Clinton. No one was listening to them. No one wanted to listen to them.
Or his relationship to Epstein. I think that's a whole other thing that, I mean, like we said, we called the man a hoe. we, we
He was
know
a
what
big
he
old
is.
hope.
We know who he is. I'm glad to see him recede into the darkness
Yeah.
where he, probably belongs because of all the women he has used and abused and steamrolled and just I'm just so grossed out by the thing, just even the little bit we hear about, and we know there's an ocean below it.
Yeah.
And so to all of his victims, and all the women who got caught up in the sewer trap with
Yeah.
him, I just really feel for them. And I hope
Well,
that this is also a healing for the women who have not, whose names haven't been dragged through the mud, have been living for decades with this like quiet ick,
right.
inside of them,
Yeah.
that could be a healing for them as well.
Because what he's accused of is really predatory behavior and it's grooming. He went after this very naive young girl. I mean, that all speaks to grooming. That sets off my spiny senses.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Shame on him. And in a sense, shame on everyone for kind of just like laying it all on her. Absolutely. I'm actually glad you brought up the Epstein's files. I don't want to dive into that because we know that there's already like a huge talk about it all happening right now. But I will say that what feels similar about the Monica Lewinsky scandal and the Epstein files right now is that it's like the women, are the ignored piece of it. It's like it's the focus is on, these men in power and how their lives could be impacted by it, right? What could are they in danger versus like in the Epstein case, hundreds of women who suffered from him. And we're just seeing how women time and time again are being objectified and being used and abused. And so I'm glad that we're actually talking about Monica because I think we need to heal that wound in order to move forward and look at this really profound abuse that is still happening, that could maybe take down some people in power right now, but to focus on the victims and to remember that each of them had a name, each of them had a story, and each of them had a life that at as early as 14 was absolutely taken away from them. So I just hope for any women that were involved in that Epstein file mess that they are also able at some point to reclaim some of themselves because it's more of the same thing on just like a different level.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Oh, this felt
Just talking about this feels like a healing. This really
yeah.
feels like a healing circle today.
Absolutely. I mean, I was just getting ready to say just that, like, oh, I can exhale a little bit. I have more room in my space right now to be able to speak this. And it's my hope and my prayer that every woman who encounters this story, whether it's through our channel or listening to Monica's interview directly or going to Monica's podcast, and of course we'll have all the links below. I just, yes, I want us to use this as an invitation for a collective healing of the feminine. And she is clawing back her rightful place. I feel that very strongly. I said this to a friend the other day, and I befuddled her. She didn't know what to say to me. I said, I feel like the divine feminine is back, and we are probably seeing the end of patriarchy. And she was just like, She didn't really know what to say. But I do think it's happening. And I think it's the power and the strength of women like Monica, like all of us who are willing to hold our spines straight and speak the truth no matter what.
Absolutely. And oh, that's so in alignment with me too as a voice coach. This whole idea that if we speak our truth, no one can take that away from us, right? That if we get more and more comfortable speaking our truth and, speaking our experience of the world, we won't feel like we're as oppressed, that we're in the shadows, that we're, being pushed to the side. And I agree with you. We see a lot of messy men making a lot of horrible decisions for us right now, and we're tired. We have voices, we have autonomy, and we have a lot of power now. And I am so excited as we age to see what we get to do with that power. I am so excited to see what Monica Lewinsky gets to do with her power. I'm really proud of her for stepping forward and just presenting herself as best she can, and I'm really proud of us for doing the same thing. And the beautiful thing is when you're in your truth, there's like a momentum, there's a wave. It's not just you out there on your own. So for anyone listening and thinking, I have a thing, but it's so messy and I don't even know where to start, you know, just start in little small phrases, just like speaking your truth in kind of a daily way, saying what you actually think, share your opinion. We all have one. Share what you like, share what you don't like, just getting clear about that. I think that is going to strengthen that muscle because girls, we need to use it.
Yeah, and it won't always be easy, and this is kind
No,
of a gross analogy, but I think we've all heard it. People will have their responses and their reactions to your thoughts, feelings, and your actions, um, and they're entitled to have their opinion, and what's the
absolutely.
saying? Opinions are like
Yep.
everyone's got one, and so I think, we have to, like, take a page out of, like, Mel Robbins, what's her book? Her Let Them theory. Other people are gonna have their thoughts and feelings, you just let them, it's not actually about you, and
No.
some of us actually need to kinda think about severing our connection to that. You can just sever it, be like, "Oh, yeah, that's not mine,"
Yeah.
and it's really unfortunate they're going to think less of me or have their judgments that I have that thought or that opinion, but it does not matter at the end of the day. It doesn't
No.
matter.
And we can share our opinion and then we can also change our minds later. And I think you and I, who both identify as recovering people pleasers, when we were trained to please others and to, not share our opinions, we kind of didn't have an identity. We were these malleable things that were constantly shifting depending on what people thought and felt. But then you're not really actually claiming your own identity. So once we actually start claiming our identity and not thinking about how we're just in service for others, to your point, then we're actually letting people know what they can like and dislike about us. And that's a good thing.
That's
We
a
want
really good
lots
thing.
of people. We don't need all the people to like us all the time. We need the right people to like us at the right times. And we need to like ourselves first and foremost. We got a couple comments. Let's see what we're getting.
Girlfriends, you're speaking up.
We're getting Mona saying, yes, exclamation mark, share what you want and like, and reject on why you like and think.
Reflect.
Oh, and excuse me, and reflect on why you like and think what you do. Absolutely. The more we are in communication with ourselves, the more we can go out there and speak our minds, the better. And if you're actually pissing off people and if you're getting people disagreeing with you, I think that's a good thing. As long as you're not harming anybody in the process, you are taking a stand.
Yeah. And we can start small. Start in circles like this of like minded people where you can be in a little bit of an echo chamber of like, oh, they're celebrating my thoughts and my opinions, and then that also builds courage to do that out into the world more and more and more. And that's why you and I love going live here on Substack. It's why we've built this community. It's why we're just waving our freak flag of being girlfriends of a certain age. And I see what it's done for both of us personally and professionally to have this platform and to use it as we see fit. And I'm just here for that all day long.
And I want to read one more comment from Mona because this is actually a beautiful button to end on, which is I'm a philosopher, so I am used of being disagreeable from time to time. Laugh out loud. Well, Mona, we want to keep on talking to you because, I was too agreeable for too long, and it's actually quite fun to start being a little disagreeable.
This is the
So
best feeling in the world.
it is a great feeling. So, yeah, if you aren't a member, please come join us at Girlfriends of a Certain Age. We take on different juicy Gen X topics every week here. We want to hear from you. We want to hear your voice. This is how we're going to go stronger together. Mona says, yes, let's be friends. Let's be friends. We're all about it. We're all about girlfriends of a certain age. Come and wave your freak flag with us. We love you.
We love you so much. We'll see you next week.
Bye.